Hi everybody, I'm Tara. I am co-owner of Smeared Ink Stamps and the Smeared and Smudged Forum. I'm going to be teaching you one of our Mixed Media University classes. It's going to be cracked plaster on burlap. So first let me show you what you're going to need for the class. You will need burlap that is cut a little bit bigger than the size of whatever substrate you're going to be covering. I'm going to be using a canvas, so I've cut it just a little bit bigger than the size that I need. You'll obviously need your substrate of whatever you're covering toward the end of the project. You will need a garbage bag that you can lay out to work on. You will need your plaster of Paris, which I got this big tub for about $8 and it'll last a while, so it's a pretty good investment there. You will need some cool water. You will need something clean to mix your plaster in and something to stir it with. I would suggest using something that's wooden because it's just easier to stir with, and you don't want to use any silverware or stuff that you use to eat with, so I just use a stick. You will need something flat that you can spread your plaster out with, and I'm using just an old library card. Toward the end of the project you'll need some acrylic paints. I would suggest, if you want to keep the look of the plaster, that you use the cheapo stuff like the craft paints, because these more expensive acrylics will add shininess to the plaster. You'll need some paintbrushes, and you will need a strong glue to adhere your burlap down. I'm going to use wood glue, and that's about it. So we're going to start off. First I'm going to have you come over here this way so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to start off by adding just a couple of scoops of the plaster into your little mixing cup, and depending on the brand of plaster that you get, I would just go ahead and read the instructions and see what your ratios are, but it's usually 2-part plaster to 1-part water. So let's see, I'm going to add about that much. That'll probably cover my burlap. I kind of just eyeball it when I'm doing this, but you can actually measure if you want to. So I'll add my water in and start stirring. And the consistency that you want for this project is a little bit more watery, almost like a soupy kind of consistency, because the burlap is really going to suck in a lot of that moisture. When you're mixing the plaster, you have about 6 or 7 minutes before it hardens up, or before it gets to the point that you can't move it around a lot anymore. Mine got a little bit too soupy, so I'll add a little bit more in there. And you know, just pull it out with your stick to see how thick it is. Mix it really well because you don't want any lumps in there. The kind of plaster that I got is a non-bubbling kind, so that may be something that you want to look for when you're getting your plaster. And once that's mixed in, that looks about right. What I'm going to do is I just pour it straight out onto the burlap. And really try and get all of it out. What you're going to do when you spread this is you're going to push down really hard to get it down into the cracks of the burlap. And spread it all the way out to the edges. And after you do that, you'll come back over and make it a little smoother across the top. I may need to mix some more here, but like I said, you have about 6 or 7 minutes before it hardens up. So you have that time to do that if you have to. So you really want to press it down. And that's why you have that garbage bag there, because it's gonna go through the cracks in the burlap. Go all the way over to the edges. And smooth it out. And I am gonna mix some more, because what you wanna do is you wanna get the plaster down into the cracks of the burlap. But by the time you're done with this, you want to have a layer of plaster over the top that's smooth. So you don't want to be able to see the burlap texture in there. So I'm going to mix probably about half as much as I did last time. Just to get another layer over the top. You want the same consistency, and that's a little soupy. There we go. And just keep eyeballing it and mixing it in until you get it to the right consistency. I think I put way too much water in there. That's okay. Just keep adding more. The thing with plaster is if you're using the cool water, it's gonna set up faster. If you want a little bit more leeway as far as the time to get it down on whatever project you're doing, you can use warm water and it'll take a little bit longer to harden up. Okay, it's almost there. So, that looks about right. All right, I'm gonna pour some more over the top. And take my card. And you can see after I'm putting the second layer on that it's a lot thicker. And it's covering up that burlap texture, and that's what you want. I'm gonna go all the way to the edges. You don't have to overlap onto the garbage bag, especially if you cut your burlap bigger than your substrate, because you're going to end up cutting it. But since the garbage bag's there, you might as well go over the edges if you want to. I'm just going to use the card to scrape out the plaster that's in my cup, so I can get that on really thickly. And yes, I am messy. I do not care about getting my hands dirty. If you are the type of person that doesn't like getting stuff on your hands, you can always use some gloves while you're doing this, or the paint trowel works well because it has the handle. So once I get this layer down, I'll smooth it out as much as I can without pressing down really hard. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna let it sit for about 5 or 6 minutes. And that'll get the plaster to set up just enough that you can come back and smooth it out some more. It won't harden, but it'll be set enough that you can smooth it out. And that looks just about right. So these lines, we'll come back and fix that in about 5 or 6 minutes. And I will see you guys then.